Hey everybody, it's Never, and I saw a thread recently about some people are really bored with the game, and so what would you do to make the game less boring? And so I made a list, but I thought I'd share it here just to share it. So here's the stuff I would do to make the game less boring. This isn't everything that I think needs to be done, but these are the things I came up with in about 3 or 4 minutes off the top of my head. So here's the list. Make classes more engaging to play. Heroes of the Storm would, in my opinion, be a good place to look for ability and mechanics design. Abilities having multiple functions and interacting with one another to reward skillful play would do a lot to breathe fresh life into WoW. A good example of this would be like if you've got a slow ability and an interrupt. If you combine those into one ability, then you have to make a choice whether you want to use your interrupt up and have it on cooldown or whether you want to get that slow out, and it combines the abilities into a single button, which makes for some interesting gameplay. So anyone who's played Heroes of the Storm will understand how that works. I mean, you've got characters with 3 or 4 abilities, maybe 5 or 6 at most, and you can get some really satisfying interactions with those abilities. And I think WoW could use some more of that. To go along with that, reduce the base global cooldown to 1 second instead of 1.5 seconds, and then reduce the fast specs like Windwalker monks and rogues and cats and demon hunters to 0.5 seconds. This would speed up gameplay a lot, and I think it would do a lot of good for it. And all you would have to do to balance this out is to just reduce the damage that everything does proportionally, because it'll all be happening faster. So more smaller hits instead of fewer big hits. You could even have a couple of specs that are intentionally on a longer global cooldown. The other thing is to have category-based global cooldowns instead of a universal one. So all your DPS cooldowns share a global cooldown with one another, but not your other abilities. All your defensive cooldowns share a global cooldown with each other, but not other abilities. So you could hit your regular abilities, and your defensive or offensive cooldowns would not go on global cooldown when you hit those, but when you hit one of those, all of the ones in the same category would, but anything not in that category would not. And keeping movement off the global cooldown entirely. Then less RNG all around, and when RNG is present, it should be a chance at a specific reward from a specific boss or event. So kind of like it has been in the past, where stuff can be rare and it can be a random chance whether you get that thing. But I should know that by going here and doing this content, I am getting a chance at whatever that thing is that I want. Make professions deep and meaningful again. If you know how they were in Classic with specializations, I mean, I talked about this in my last video, but and they're in an awful state right now. They need to be fleshed out. Things that they make need to matter, and they don't have to matter with power. That's something I think I should emphasize. The thing that makes professions interesting is not that they make your character do more damage, survive longer, or heal better. They can simply be interesting to use. They can provide you with fun mechanics. That's one thing I like about engineering, is it's not all about just making your character stronger, it's about being able to do stuff you couldn't otherwise do. And I think other professions could benefit from similar design. Incentivize playing with others. It would be really cool if you had bonus XP, or like, again, in Heroes of the Storm, if you have a party with real people, you get an XP bonus even if you automatically queue for content. The more people you have in your party when you queue, the better of an XP bonus you get. Something like that could do wonders for WoW, because then you're more incentivized to fill up your party with people that you actually want to be with, rather than just random strangers that you have a higher chance of having a bad experience with. Give players things that they've been asking for a long time, like Sethrak or loosening transmog restrictions. Give players the things that they beg for. Not all the time, not all of them, but some of them. That goes a long way. And Blizzard's done some of that recently. I think part of the problem with this is there's a bit of a disconnect, because once they decide they're going to go with an idea that they've been hearing about for a long time, they've been hearing about it for a long time, and then it takes a while yet before they can actually get it implemented into the game. Sometimes there's months of delay for something when they start to do it, or when they decide to do it. So that's something that maybe that we could use more of, but they could communicate a little more about that, I think, if they're doing it as much as I think they are. Have world quests and other in-game content take us to other parts of the world, like Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor, because there's a lot of really great places there that I'd like to have reason to visit more often. Why isn't Silver Moon one of these? Why isn't it right there? We still have that. Anyway, add a mercenary mode for PvE so you can group up with cross-faction friends. I think that's kind of a no-brainer, and it shocks me that that hasn't been there yet. Let's do this. Now I'll read my list for real. Allow players to time walk down to the level range of any previous zone or instance so they can play with leveling friends or do old content as it was. You know, kind of like a lot of other games do. I think one reason this may not be here yet is I suspect that time walking may be a major feature of a future expansion, which would allow us to do things like that. But that's a whole nother video, I think. Make the world feel large and alive again by adding random events that can happen anywhere for fun rewards. Similar to the Timeless Isle, but longer events that can spawn anywhere in the whole game. More participants mean a greater chance for everyone to get loot. Have a very large and varied loot table so you don't feel like you're done even if you get stuff frequently. Loot could include lots of transmog items, old and new, some pets, and a few rare mounts. A wide variety of things. Toys, recipes for fun things your profession can make, special class abilities, anything like that, and all of the events could drop any of them. So kind of like island expeditions that just randomly happen anywhere on the map. So wherever you are in the game, you get a little notification, hey, I heard that there was some sort of business going down in Blades Edge Mountains. Okay, how fast can I get to Blades Edge Mountains? And it'd show up on my map right here, like Forge Camp Wrath. They're having a disco dance party, and we need to go and crash that party and kill all the demons that are doing it. I mean, whatever it is. And that happens, and maybe it takes 40 people 15 minutes to go do it, so it occupies 30 to 45 minutes of your time, but you have a high chance of getting some kind of reward from it. And even the participation prize is still something pretty useful, and then a few hours later another one could pop up anywhere. Getting that kind of variance with things would be pretty cool. Let's see, where were we? More frequent, even if shorter, dev interviews, or just State of the Union style updates. If we had a monthly thing where one of the lead devs said, here's what's going on in development, here's more about the game, something kind of like a what's coming panel, but just a little miniature one, that might go a long way to engaging the community so the devs don't feel like this black box that's just soaking up information and very rarely spits anything out. More race class combinations. That would be really nice. I've talked about what I want with that. World PvP objectives that give faction-wide XP, rep, and gold boosts for a few hours each capture. Kind of like the Spirit Towers, but if we had something that showed up in Zandalar right here, and you've got to have a certain number of players occupy the thing and move the progress bar, kind of like Ashran, and it takes a few minutes, and the more players you have, the faster it goes. The stronger presence that you put there, the quicker you have to capture it. And then if you do, then everyone in your faction for this entire continent would get double XP, double rep, double gold, something like that for a few hours, and then halfway through it, something would spawn up for a different continent. Probably it's most important to have it in the newest ones, but then it would be this back and forth sort of struggle thing. Or if war modes were a PvP thing, then maybe they could have been something that would grant you that, but they aren't. Officially tracked leaderboards for world first boss kills, mythic plus, and difficult solo achievements. If there was a place on the official website, or even in something like this that said, hey, here's the people that are really close to getting this thing, and here's stuff that no one's done yet, whatever. I think something like that would go really far to making the community feel a little more alive. More solo challenge content like the Mage Tower or the Iron Man challenge, if they actually implemented it into the game properly, so it can track you in-game and you can see people doing it. With titles and leaderboards as mentioned above, that would be really cool. Or if you had an option to make an Iron Man character, or even just an achievement that says here's the criteria for getting this achievement, and then you'd get a title that would say Iron Man or something. I think that would be really cool. integrate some official RP tools into the game's UI and chat so we don't have to use a bunch of workarounds with add-ons to just do simple things that should exist already in a role-playing game. Fix the fun detected problem by reducing the cooldown of many toys to be equal to their duration, or increasing the duration to be equal to the cooldown. So any of these really fun things, like the Orb of Deception, 5 minutes for a 30-minute cooldown. What is the harm in having this last 30 minutes? What harm does it do? I can't think of any negative thing about it, but it certainly does add a lot of fun to this item. It makes it more fun to use because I know, oh man, 30 minutes and I get to look like a dwarf. I get to look like a dwarf for 30 minutes. That makes this feel a lot more valuable than, oh yeah, 5 minutes and it's going to be gone. So that's how I feel about that. Okay. Give more control. Oh, and to go along with the toys, just disable toys in places like Ashran or something to prevent lag exploitation problems. Just prevent the toys in that area. Simple. Then we don't have that problem with multi-boxers using really visually intense toys all at once and crashing servers. And punish people that do that more. Give more control over visual settings such as saturation, contrast, RGB, shadows, midtones, highlights, sharpness, all of that sort of stuff so that I don't have to fix stuff in post to make the game look good. Because by default it doesn't look as good as I think it ought to. And so that's why I like my videos to look nice. Make guilds matter more. And improve the guild finder, because the guild finder is one of the least effective systems in the whole game. Joining a guild should mean something, especially since we have communities out there. Guilds can matter a little more. And there should be some extra benefits to, some really worthwhile benefits that incentivize you to change your behavior to support your guild. It shouldn't be an optional thing. I mean, it should be technically optional, but it should be good enough that you feel compelled to do it. And it should compel people to want to join guilds, because guilds add to the experience. Some people won't want to be in guilds and they can give those bonuses up, and that's fine. Let's see. Oh yeah, here's a big one. I've talked about this before. Optionally limit flying by providing a war mode-like toggle that gives double XP or rep gains in flying areas when flying is disabled for you with this toggle. Accepting specific zones or areas like Netherstorm or parts of Storm Peaks. So I think one of the biggest problems is the world feels small. I talked about this in my last video, and having a toggle like that, and it doesn't, I mean, maybe it needs to be more than double XP, or maybe it needs to be less, but it should be enough that it incentivizes people that want to have a more immersive, ground-based experience. They should feel like they are not being hurt by doing it. But it shouldn't be such a hugely valuable reward that people who really, really want flying feel like they are punished for not turning it off. I mean, I think War Mode hit the mark pretty well with the value. The trouble is, once you finish leveling up, War Mode doesn't really have the same appeal, so I think it needs a little more pull to it. A little bit more. Or a different sort of value to it. Have popular named NPCs involved in things like world quests and events more often so we feel a greater connection to them. And then they have more presence in the world. So it'd be cool if I was out burning down an Alliance ship or something, and then when I'm in the middle of doing it, here comes Sylvanas. And she shows up and shoots people with some arrows and then says something real cool to me and then flies off into the sunset. And it's like, yeah, Sylvanas came and helped me out. We're totally homies now. That would be pretty great. And then finally, put the PvP gear on a vendor and make conquest points into a currency. For crying out loud. I talked about it in the last video. But anyway, those are the things that I would do to make the game feel more fun. Kind of in the order of most to least important, because I think that fixing the gameplay mechanics of the classes would probably go the farthest to making the game more enjoyable. So anyway, that's what I think we should do. There's probably a lot of other really good ideas, and there's other things that would take a lot more work to implement, which again I've talked about before in previous videos. But The problem is the game just doesn't have the same engaging feel that it should or that it has in the past. And I really hope that that changes, because I love this game and it's a lot of fun. And if you're only going to play one game, I can't recommend a better one than this. But it's frustrating when it falls a little bit short of what you know it has been and could still be. And I'm not just talking about vanilla WoW nostalgia. I'm just talking about even recent times during Legion when things were better, or even times during Warlords of Draenor when I was raiding and there was new content that just came out and things were better. I think 8.1 is going to do a lot to alleviate some of these points, and I think Blizzard is moving in the right direction with many of the things that they do. But as I tried to explain before, I think there's a bit of a disconnect and a delay to getting some of these changes out. And sometimes it's just hard to wait long enough to see the benefit. Anyway, that is my list of things that I would change to make the game more fun. I hope you love it, and if you're Alliance and you're offended by this background that I had, I did it as a symbolic thing to say that, oh no, Blizzard's ship is burning a little bit. But, I mean, they could still put that out, right? They could put it out. There's water right there. Right there. The answers are right in front of them. It's just difficult to throw water onto a boat, I guess. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Okay, thanks, bye.